So many people come into therapy feeling frustrated with themselves, thinking, why can't I just stick to my habits and my goals? Today, Channing Harris and I are here to unpack a really important reframe. Why habit change isn't just about discipline and willpower at all. It's actually what we can do to actually make sustainable changes for the long haul. Yeah. So, Channing, in your recent blog, you sort of challenged the idea of solely relying on willpower. Not necessarily that willpower is completely bad, but relying on it to make big lifestyle changes. What do you think that? Why do you think that belief is so common that we just need to white knuckle it and push through?
I think in part because willpower is a really powerful tool and can be really useful and really beneficial. It's just not the only answer. And it's not really great for long-term sustainable change. It is great for short-term and very narrow focused goals. Like trying to run a marathon, willpower is absolutely going to help you.
It's going to be a big component.
Yes, yeah. It's a great thing. But if you're trying to live an overall healthy lifestyle, you're not going to run a marathon every day. And just using willpower can actually be damaging and counteract your ability to reach those those long-term sustainable changes. And I think part of why it's so easily marketed that way or packaged that way is because it is so effective. But not for all goals, not for all things that we're going to go after. So I think understanding when willpower can be used to your benefit, and yes, as I almost think it's a superpower or as a skill, but just not over applying it.
Yeah. So it's not the full picture. It's a component.
Yeah.
Maybe an important component, but there's more. So can you kind of define willpower? And in your blog article, you talk about sort of willpower versus emotional capacity. A lot of us are familiar with willpower. Can you kind of define both of those, willpower and emotional capacity, for us?
Yeah, I think this kind of ties into what we were just talking about too. So willpower, I use the analogy of it's almost like a singular muscle in your body, and it's again can be a powerhouse, and is something that just like any other muscle needs consistent maintenance. Like if you don't use muscles, you lose them.
Yeah.
They are not something that you use it once or you build it up once and it's there forever. It's something that you have to consistently add to and maintain, which is a good discipline. But same idea as if I'm only using one major muscle, and then you can overuse it, and then it can cause strain and it can burn out, and it doesn't cause long-term change. So willpower is this idea of what is it? It's self-denial. I'm denying what I might need in the moment or want in the moment so that I can reach a greater goal. Delayed gratification in that way. And so I'm pushing through, almost thinking I'm white knuckling. I'm not listening to maybe some of my other needs in the moment because I will meet them later, and I know that. But to get through this goal, to reach and achieve the singular thing that I want, finish that marathon, I might need rest, I might need water, I might need food, but through willpower, I'm able to push through those things.
Great. Those are really helpful definitions to understand.
I didn't do emotional capacity.
Oh yeah, and so then on the other hand, emotional capacity.
And then on the other hand, emotional capacity, I think of it as that's the whole system. And with this analogy, you can think of it as that's the whole body working together. And that is that idea of, okay, well, what is emotional capacity? It brings together a lot of different things. It is my ability to regulate. It's my ability to cope with stress, to cope with emotions, to cope with, not just emotional stress, but physical stress on your body as well. But I think the emotional piece is the key component,
Yeah, being able to withstand more in sort of more holistic way. Why do you think habits tend to fall apart during more stressful seasons? We just finished the holidays. During the holidays, those busier times, why do we kind of lose what we thought we'd gained?
Well, you think about willpower, and at the end of the day, we're designed for self-preservation. We're designed to take care of ourselves. And so that is going to get kicked into overdrive at some point. You can deny those needs only to a certain capacity. At the end of the day, I'm going to go into fight or flight if I need to protect myself. I might be able to use willpower to like white knuckle that and not flee or not fight, but you add enough stress. You add enough stuff going on, and you think like the holidays and work stress and all these things. It only takes kind of one, I think about like the straw that broke the camel's back. It only can take one little thing that you add on top, and the willpower is not going to sustain.
Right.
And so, you know, that starts to burn out. And when you're that emotional capacity piece, when you're not regulated and you're not trying to achieve goals from a regulated space, your fight or flight or your even freeze, your shutdown response is going to kick in. And at that point, your
willpower is not going to do much for you.
You're on autopilot at that point. You're not, I mean, your decision-making parts of your brain start to get inhibited.
Right.
And so willpower is not going to do you much at that point.
Yeah. So it's relying on willpower sounds like a way to kind of burn out.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of back where you started. That's really helpful, especially at this time of year where people are setting a lot of resolutions. So willpower-based habit change versus emotional capacity-based habit change. Can you give us like an example, a real-life example?
Yeah. So if you think about like willpower-based, usually it's very rigid, very structured. I think about, I'm going to work out 4 times a week for an hour. And like, yeah, that's great. And with willpower, you will likely be able to make that happen for a while. I mean, maybe even like long term. Also, just like I said, it's a muscle. So if you really exercise that muscle, you might be able to sustain that for quite a while. But eventually, you add enough stress, you add enough things, then typically what happens is if you're operating from a not regulated place, you burn out and then you hit that either fight, flight, or freeze. Then you avoid doing the thing, or I think about like you buck doing the thing, you self-sabotage, or you freeze, you shut down, you just don't do it at all. And then it looks like all or nothing. Yeah, I did work out for 4 hours a week for 6 months perfectly. And then something happened, and it kind of blew up my whole goals, and now I haven't worked out in 6 weeks.
This is exactly what happened to me a couple of years ago. I was relying on willpower and went for 6 months, and then, So I know this too. This is very, very true. For anybody listening, she's correct on her.
Well, then the sad thing is, then the thought is, well, if I wanted this more, or if I just worked harder, or if I didn't self-sabotage, basically if I wasn't flawed, then I would just be able to.
Which is not the case at all, really.
Which then perpetuates you not achieving those goals, because then you're continuing to operate from a place where you don't feel regulated, you don't feel motivated, you're self-deprecating, self-blame. And it's really not about just pure laziness. It's about, okay, well, let's operate from a place where you're regulated, and then you can actually make the healthy choices that you need for a long-term system.
And if we're using this analogy of working out or exercise, that is why it's so important to find things that you enjoy doing.
Yes.
Because that is regulating your nervous system. Yeah, that's great. Can you give us a little bit of advice for anybody watching, or for me? Some advice if someone's feeling stuck or discouraged in their new habits, creating that change. What's maybe a gentler question you can suggest that they ask themselves instead of like the criticizing?
Yeah, usually I think it's important to ask yourself, like, well, what do I have the emotional capacity to do right now? Okay, I have a lot of work stress, or I have a lot of home stress, or maybe I'm a new mom and I'm trying to figure out life, or another transition. I might not have the emotional capacity or the brain space to try to work out 4 hours every single week, 4 times a week. But maybe I have the emotional capacity to do some gentle movement once a day. That is, and maybe sometimes I do an hour workout. I wake up and I feel, I feel good, and I'm able to do that, and I go do a, hour-long yoga class. And then other times it's, I'm really struggling today, and so maybe I'm just going to go on a walk and work on regulating my nervous system. I'm going to look at the things around me, give my nervous system the feedback that I'm actually okay and I'm safe, and I can, come back to that space, which will then help me be like, oh, I actually can go and work out, tomorrow. And so adjusting it that way.
Oh, I love it. These are such helpful tips and such helpful reframes. For anybody watching who's interested in working with a therapist to learn to regulate your nervous system, or to set goals that are manageable and achievable in this way of thinking about emotional capacity versus willpower, you can head over to etheridgecounseling.com and schedule a free consultation to either get scheduled with Channing or one of our other therapists if you live in South Carolina. But definitely recommend liking, following, subscribing so you can get all of these helpful tips on a regular basis. And thank you so much for watching.